Donc voilà, moi je suis un petit peu l'universitaire de service qui vient un petit peu replacer les choses et mettre un regard un peu historique, économique sur ce qu'on appelle aujourd'hui ces politiques transmédia qui vont de développement multimédia, multisupport à des propositions qui sont les ARG, Augmented Reality Games. Et je ne produis pas moi-même de contenu, hein, donc c'est vraiment plutôt le regard historique que je vais vous proposer. Et puis dans un deuxième temps, comme je sais qu'il y a quelques professionnels ici dans la salle, je vais vous présenter quelques chiffres, quelques données sur les adaptations de films de cinéma en jeux vidéo. Alors je vous ai mis en image de ce premier slide une peinture d'un artiste contemporain américain qui s'appelle Brandon Birds. Je vous recommande très chaudement son site internet sur lequel vous pourrez voir son travail qui mène depuis 10 ans sur la pop culture américaine. Et donc il avait intitulé cette peinture Nobody Wants to Play Sega with Harrison Ford. Personne ne veut jouer à la Sega avec Harrison Ford. Et donc vous avez un Harrison Ford Fort Mari qui a sa fameuse console Sega Master System, mais bien évidemment les deux camarades de jeu préfèrent la NES, la console concurrente de Nintendo. Alors, on en a parlé tout à l'heure avec les propositions des game designers suisses. Bon, vous savez que le jeu vidéo est d'abord né dans les laboratoires américains, laboratoires de recherche, laboratoires de l'industrie de l'électronique grand public, laboratoires souvent aussi financés par l'armée américaine. Et on a toute une série de dates qu'on retient. Je vous en ai sélectionné ici 3. La première, c'est plus ou moins un brevet, hein, où un ingénieur décide d'intégrer un module ludique à un écran de télévision. Ses employeurs décident que l'idée n'est pas bonne et que c'est pas dans cette direction-là qu'il faut travailler sur un téléviseur qui se veut haut de gamme. Et donc la proposition n'en reste qu'au stade de projet. En 1958, et c'est l'application que nous ont montré tout à l'heure Florian et son camarade, c'est un physicien, il s'appelle William Higginbotham, et il doit s'occuper de mettre en place une journée porte ouverte dans son laboratoire du Brookhaven National Laboratories. Et il se dit que ce serait intéressant que les gens puissent manipuler du matériel de recherche. Et donc, il va décider de passer par une forme ludique, une forme de manipulation, donc sur un écran d'oscilloscope, où les joueurs vont pouvoir manipuler un spot lumineux qui vont renverser d'un côté à l'autre de l'écran. Troisième date, c'est 1962, ce sont des étudiants du MIT, ils appartiennent à un club qui fait du modélisme ferroviaire, des petits trains, et puis la société DEC leur confie un des tout premiers micro-ordinateurs. Vous savez que les entreprises d'informatique aimaient bien livrer comme ça des machines informatiques aux étudiants pour les laisser bidouiller avec. Et donc ces étudiants, plutôt que de faire des calculs très compliqués à ce DEC PDP-1, vont décider de lui faire afficher des graphismes et vont créer une petite application ludique qui s'appelle Space War, hein, qui est développée en 1962 et qui va connaître un assez grand succès sur les campus américains puisque grâce au réseau ARPANET qui relie les différentes universités américaines, l'application va se retrouver de campus en campus, va être jouée par différents étudiants et chacun d'ailleurs va améliorer le programme, l'arranger, le sophistiquer un peu et donc voilà, ce logiciel circule à travers les États-Unis et les campus américains. Ces gens-là, ces gens du MIT, on les appelle à l'époque des hackers. Ça n'a pas du tout la connotation délinquante que le mot hacker porte aujourd'hui. Hein. Le hacker, c'est celui qui va pousser un matériel dans ses derniers retranchements pour essayer d'en éprouver les qualités. Alors voilà, hein, vous voyez à droite à quoi ressemble un mini-ordinateur en 1962. C'est grosso modo 3 armoires, 3 réfrigérateurs et puis un écran rond, un petit peu qui rappelle ceux de l'oscilloscope. Mais déjà, avec Space War, on a une interface qui permet de diriger un avatar à l'écran, une représentation visuelle qui va jouer bien évidemment des limitations graphiques de l'époque. Bon, on a un fond d'écran noir tiens, pourquoi pas mettre une action qui se situerait dans l'espace, on va essayer de jouer un petit peu sur les contraintes. Et puis c'est vrai que c'est une des premières applications qui va dépasser la simple idée de simulation, hein, pour aller vers le domaine de la fiction, et entre autres celui de la science-fiction, de la pop culture américaine. C'est très souvent ce jeu-là qui est retenu comme premier jeu vidéo. Il faut voir aussi qu'il possède des règles, qu'il possède une jouabilité, qu'il possède un but, ce qui est peut-être pas tout à fait le cas de Tennis for Two, hein, où il s'agit juste de renvoyer la balle sans ni comptage de points ou de choses comme ça. Alors, ce qui est intéressant, c'est que dans les mêmes années, le cinéma s'interroge lui aussi sur l'idée de faire participer le spectateur. Alors, il y aurait plusieurs choses à vous montrer, mais je vais vous garder celle-là qui me semble la plus intéressante. C'est une attraction qui s'appelle le Kino Automate. Elle est exploitée de 1967 à 1974 et elle est inaugurée au pavillon tchèque de l'exposition universelle qui se tient au Canada en 1967 à Montréal. Et ça a été créé par un ingénieur cinéaste qui s'appelait Raduz Cinjera, avec un film qui s'appelle Man and His House. Et donc vous avez ici une espèce d'arborescence narrative, et à différents points de jonction, on demande aux spectateurs, à l'aide d'un boîtier électronique qui permet de voter, de se prononcer sur quel chemin narratif employer. L'attraction donc est exploitée pendant toute la durée de l'exposition universelle, hein, un peu plus d'une année, et à l'issue de l'exploitation de cette attraction, on fait les comptes. On observe les statistiques. Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Et il s'avère que très, très majoritairement, hein, dans des taux qui approchent les 90%, les spectateurs ont choisi le même chemin narratif. C'est-à-dire qu'ils arrivent à la même fin. Donc il y a une forme de conformisme d'une certaine façon des foules face à une proposition interactive. Alors le premier jeu vidéo à succès, celui qui va mettre en place un marché du jeu vidéo, c'est le fameux Pong, hein, qui est créé entre 1971 et 1972. Il est créé par cet entrepreneur qui s'appelle Nolan Bushnell, qui a été étudiant à la fin des années 60 sur les campus américains, qui a joué à Space War et qui a même voulu le commercialiser, en faire une borne d'arcade sous le titre de Computer Space. Borne d'arcade qui n'a pas connu le succès puisqu'elle était très compliquée à manipuler. Il fallait lire une notice d'utilisation très longue, très fournie, et bien évidemment, les joueurs n'avaient pas de temps à perdre, ils cherchaient un divertissement beaucoup plus immédiat. Donc, Nolan Bushnell avec Al Alcorn revoient leur copie et proposent cette simulation très épurée de ping-pong ou de tennis, avec comme seule indication sur le petit panonceau métallique que vous avez sous l'écran, qui est éviter de laisser filer la balle. Et voilà, Pong lance l'industrie du jeu vidéo, et il faut bien voir que de 1972 jusqu'à bien 1975, le jeu vidéo est synonyme de Pong, c'est-à-dire que les applications qui sont développées dans ces années-là sont pratiquement exclusivement des ersatz du Pong de Nolan Bushnell, et Atari elle-même produit des variations autour du Pong qui vont s'appeler Quadra Pong par exemple, avec 4 raquettes au lieu de 2. Alors, on est dans cette période qui va être assez intéressante parce qu'elle va définir beaucoup de choses qui nous concernent aujourd'hui pour ce qui concerne les politiques transmédia, le merchandising. C'est cette décennie aux États-Unis, cet âge d'or américain, qui est largement dominé par Atari, Atari qui est une compagnie américaine, bien qu'elle porte un nom japonais. L'Atari, c'est l'équivalent de l'échec et maths dans le jeu de Go. On a 2 modes d'exploitation. Tout d'abord l'arcade, c'est-à-dire on joue dans des lieux publics, on paye à la partie, les sessions sont très courtes, et très souvent le modèle de l'arcade, c'est le modèle de l'accélération, c'est-à-dire que le jeu va continuellement s'accélérer jusqu'à un moment où ça va trop vite pour le joueur et il est amené à perdre. Et puis de l'autre côté, se développe le jeu vidéo domestique, c'est-à-dire que Ralph Baer, dont je vous ai parlé tout à l'heure, qui en 51 avait ce projet de télévision avec un module interactif, décide de prolonger son idée, de créer un périphérique que va commercialiser une société qui s'appelle Magnavox, Et Magnavox va commercialiser en 1972, à quelques semaines d'intervalle de la commercialisation du Pong, hein, donc vraiment les deux marchés sont créés pratiquement en même temps, une première console de jeu à cartouches interchangeables qui s'appelle l'Odyssey et qui se branche sur les écrans de télévision, en venant court-circuiter la prise antenne des postes de télévision. Parce que pour afficher une image sur un écran de télévision, bien évidemment, il n'y a pas de Péritel à l'époque, il n'y a pas de prise RCA, il n'y a aucun moyen, à part la prise antenne, de rentrer un signal vidéo. Et donc, on retrouve là l'esprit des hackers, l'esprit de détournement qui est propre aux jeux vidéo, et qu'on retrouve dans les pratiques des joueurs aussi très souvent, hein, qui aiment bien détourner de leur usage les jeux vidéo. Là, ici, ces ingénieurs détournent le poste de télévision de son usage premier, celui de recevoir un signal télévision, et d'une certaine façon, inventent en 1972 le poste de télévision tel qu'on le connaît et tel qu'on l'utilise aujourd'hui, avec son lecteur de cassette vidéo, ou son lecteur de DVD, ou son terminal Internet, qui permet d'avoir accès à différents services. Alors très rapidement, l'argent d'Hollywood va venir participer au développement très fort de cette industrie du jeu vidéo et ces années 70 voient le développement de quelques studios. On peut par exemple penser à Activision, hein, qui est fondé à la fin des années 70 par des ex-employés d'Atari. Mais Hollywood est assez présent. Alors Hollywood est présent à différents niveaux. Les années 70, la fin des années 60 et le début des années 70 correspond à un moment très fort à Hollywood, qui est un moment de réorganisation. Réorganisation des majors hollywoodiennes, Universal, 20th Century Fox, Columbia, enfin vous les connaissez, qui vont être intégrées une à des conglomérats qui vont avoir différentes activités. Si je prends le conglomérat, par exemple la Kinney, qui est un conglomérat qui possède des gestions de parking, des gestions de concessions funéraires, eh bien la Kinney décide de racheter Warner. Hein, donc les activités cinématographiques, avec le glamour qu'elle porte en elle, vont intéresser ces conglomérats. Mais ça fait long feu, ça tient que quelques temps, parce que rapidement ces conglomérats se rendent compte que c'est plus intéressant, d'un point de vue d'une valorisation financière, d'être constitués autour du même type d'activité, et entre autres les activités de divertissement. Donc Kinney par exemple va décider de se scinder en deux, les activités immobilières vont rester d'un côté, et puis à côté on va développer Warner Communication Incorporated, avec du cinéma, de la production pour la télévision, du disque, Warner Chappell, une franchise sportive, les New York Cosmos, dans lequel le roi Pelé a terminé sa carrière, voilà, tous les comics DC, hein, auxquels appartiennent Batman et Superman, voilà, et on va développer comme ça, autour du divertissement, des activités. Bien évidemment, le jeu vidéo intéresse ces conglomérats. Et Hollywood est d'autant plus attentif qu'Hollywood n'a pas vu passer la grande révolution du début des années 50, qui est la télévision, et qui a des positions de force qui se constituaient dans la télévision avec les networks, CBS, ABC, NBC. Et donc, très rapidement, ces conglomérats vont prendre des positions dans le domaine du jeu vidéo, en rachetant des entreprises. Par exemple, Atari est racheté par Warner, hein, pour une somme estimée entre 29 et 35 millions de dollars de l'époque, en 1976, alors que la compagnie a été créée 4 ans plus tôt pour 500 dollars, hein, ce qui en fait, d'après certains économistes, la compagnie au développement le plus fort de tout le capitalisme américain. D'autres compagnies vont créer des filiales, in extenso, ou prendre des parts dans des studios. Vous trouverez dans mon ouvrage, j'ai essayé de résumer, mais par exemple, on oublie très souvent que Sega appartenait à Gulf plus Western Company, hein, le conglomérat auquel appartenait Paramount. Universal va développer sa propre structure à la fin des années 70. Columbia va racheter le fabricant de flippers Williams. Voilà. Alors, le premier film adapté en jeu vidéo, une idée dans la salle? Je vous donne un indice. Jaws, les dents de la mer, tout à fait. Alors c'est assez étonnant c'est étonnant et finalement pas si étonnant que ça que ce soit les dents de la mer. Le film connaît une carrière très forte dès le mois de fin mai, début juin 75. Et Nolan Bushnell, chez Atari, s'en rend compte. Donc il appelle Universal en demandant à Universal les droits d'adaptation des Dents de la Mer, de Jaws, en jeu vidéo. Universal refuse. Universal refuse puisque dans la logique conglomérale, Universal sait très bien qu'à court terme, il va y avoir des activités vidéoludiques au sein du conglomérat, donc ne souhaite pas céder cette franchise-là. Alors, Bushnell se dégonfle pas, il décide de faire programmer le jeu. On est dans des moments où la programmation est très courte. Finalement, en 8 semaines, 8-10 semaines, on arrive à programmer un jeu, fabriquer les bornes d'arcade, envoyer la communication aux gérants des salles d'arcade et distribuer les bornes d'arcade dans les lieux de divertissement. Et donc, au mois de septembre, fin septembre 75, il est possible pour Atari, qui a quand même constitué un petit label qui s'appelle Roar Games, de sortir son jeu Shark Jaws, les mâchoires du requin, dans les salles d'arcade américaines, avec une borne d'arcade sur laquelle vous avez un Jaws énorme et un tout petit shark au-dessus du J, donc ce qui fait que bien évidemment ça entretient la confusion auprès des utilisateurs. C'est pas pour rien que ce soit les Dents de la Mer qui soient adaptés en jeu vidéo, parce que d'une part c'est un grand succès, c'est le grand succès cinématographique de l'année 75, mais c'est aussi le film qui en 1975 va concentrer toutes les stratégies qui vont être celles du New Hollywood qu'on connaît aujourd'hui, le blockbuster, par exemple. La notion de blockbuster, c'est vraiment un film comme Les Dents de la Mer qui constitue cette notion de blockbuster. Le fait de faire une publicité à la télévision, le fait de faire une sortie simultanée dans tous les États américains, ce qui ne se faisait pas auparavant, ou ce qui se faisait pour les mauvais films. Les films où on pensait qu'ils allaient se planter, avoir des problèmes, on les sortait immédiatement sur tout le territoire américain, comme ça il n'y avait pas le temps qu'un mauvais bouche à oreille se fasse. Voilà. Et là au contraire, ça va vraiment mettre en place toutes ces stratégies qu'on connaît, qui fait qu'aujourd'hui aux États-Unis un film sort sur 6000, 9000 copies à travers le territoire. Alors je pourrais vous parler, bien évidemment, là j'étais plutôt sur des logiques un peu financières, mais il y a aussi la question des imaginaires. C'est intéressant par exemple qu'un développeur japonais, Taito, décide de s'inspirer du western, alors genre hollywoodien s'il en est, pour créer un jeu de duel où les joueurs se font face et doivent essayer de se tirer l'un sur l'autre. Alors malheureusement j'ai pas le temps de vous présenter la vidéo, mais vous seriez très surpris de voir que finalement c'est les mécaniques du Pong qui sont en jeu dans ce titre-là, puisque la balle peut rebondir sur le bas et le haut de l'écran, et donc les joueurs sont invités à manipuler leur tir pour essayer de jouer avec les angles de rebond et abattre le camarade en face. Là aussi, un studio japonais va aller chercher la puissance évocatrice des genres cinématographiques, à la fois pour s'adresser à son audience locale, le public japonais qui, après-guerre, a largement vu du cinéma américain et apprécie le cinéma produit à Hollywood. À une époque, dans les années 50, c'est très chic d'aller voir un film américain. Et puis, bien évidemment, en produisant un jeu qui va se baser sur ces imaginaires globalisés, on sait très bien qu'on va pouvoir tant exploiter le jeu au Japon qu'aux États-Unis ou en Europe. Alors, également, en quelle année un jeu vidéo a-t-il pour la première fois été critiqué pour sa violence ? Vous allez voir que ça a un lien avec le cinéma. Voilà le jeu à gauche, à droite la borne d'arcade. Le jeu s'appelle Death Race. Il est publié en 1976 par un petit éditeur qui s'appelle Exili. Et le jeu est adapté de ce film de Roger Corman, qui est tout à fait raccord avec la programmation du NIFFF, Death Race 2000, la course à la mort de l'an 2000, un film avec David Carradine, Sylvester Stallone. Et les développeurs d'Exili s'inspirent un petit peu de ce jeu-là, entre autres d'une règle qui prévaut dans le film, qui est que quand on écrase des piétons, on gagne des points. Et donc les développeurs vont prendre cette idée-là et demander aux joueurs, avec un volant et une pédale d'accélération, de diriger leur véhicule, d'écraser les piétons qui se transforment en pierres tombales, et puis après il faut éviter de rentrer les pierres tombales, sinon on est coincé pendant quelques secondes et on perd du temps. Et donc c'est à qui écrasera le plus de piétons. Manque de peau, c'est un jeu vidéo. c'est-à-dire que moi j'ai eu beau rechercher une polémique autour du film, certains l'ont vu très certainement ici, hein, le film joue très, très fort de la violence et du côté un peu provoquant comme ça, de cette violence routière gratuite. Bon, le film n'a pas du tout été attaqué par qui que ce soit, ni les associations familiales, ni la critique. Le jeu l'a été par une association qui s'occupait de sécurité routière, la National Safety Association. Et d'une certaine façon, ce qui est intéressant, c'est que on voit bien qu'un nouveau média fait beaucoup plus peur qu'un ancien média, même si cet ancien média est beaucoup plus réaliste dans sa représentation du monde. Vous voyez les graphismes à gauche là, de cet écran de Death Race, vous voyez qu'il n'y a pas de quoi fouetter un chat, mais bien évidemment l'interface, le volant et la pédale d'accélération a terrifié cette association familiale. Alors, bon, il y aurait d'autres formes hybrides auxquelles on pourrait faire référence et qui ont pour le coup étaient plus, et là qui font rentrer un peu la question de l'interactivité, comment des vieux médias essayent de se redéfinir par rapport à l'émergence du jeu vidéo. Bon, les séries télé interactives de la fin des années 80 qui fonctionnaient avec des vendeurs de jouets. Hein. Vous alliez chez Mattel acheter un vaisseau spatial qui avait une petite cellule photoélectrique. Et puis, quand chaque semaine la série Captain Power, par exemple, une série canadienne était diffusée, vous pouviez vous amuser à tirer sur ici le plastron un petit peu de ce soldat qui clignote en orange et qui est reconnu par le jeu vidéo, enfin par le vaisseau spatial, et donc de faire des points, d'engranger des points sur le mode du scoring. Alors finalement, ces relations entre cinéma et jeux vidéo, on a deux chercheurs qui, il y a une dizaine d'années, avaient réfléchi à la question des relations entre médias, et on voit qu'elles s'adaptent tout à fait aux jeux vidéo. Il y a la question du commentaire, un média commente l'autre. Il y a la question de la citation, qui est très souvent associée au commentaire. Un média va citer l'autre média. Il y a la question de l'adaptation, et je vais prendre les 10 dernières minutes qui me restent pour vous en parler un peu plus précisément, et la question de l'hybridation. Bon, le commentaire, vous voyez, au début des années 80, on a toute une série de films qui se rendent bien compte que c'est intéressant de parler de jeux vidéo aux spectateurs américains. Et donc, on va avoir des films comme Tron, comme War Games, comme The Last Starfighter, des comédies adolescentes un petit peu coquines, comme Joysticks, qui jouent bien évidemment sur le double sens du terme joysticks. On a toute une série de films comme ça qui vont parler des joueurs, parler de l'industrie. Tron est un jeu qui parle énormément de l'industrie du jeu vidéo, et qui très souvent sont à la fois critiques, se montrent assez critiques dans leurs propos vis-à-vis de la pratique du jeu vidéo, mais en même temps c'est des lieux où il y a du placement de produits. Atari par exemple, dans tous les films Warner comme Cloak and Dagger par exemple, si je le prends ici, voilà, Cloak and Dagger, c'est une histoire d'espionnage avec le petit garçon qui jouait dans E.T., Henry Thomas, mais il est question d'une cartouche qui contient des plans secrets, et tiens, cette cartouche, Atari la commercialise dans les malls américains. Bien évidemment, ici, placer une borne de Computer Space, le premier jeu de Nolan Bushnell et d'Atari, dans le film d'anticipation Soleil Vert, c'est aussi parler du jeu vidéo comme fait de société, comme produit de luxe aussi, d'une certaine manière, posséder une borne de jeu. Alors on arrive à des choses formidables, de Wizard par exemple, qui est ce film véhicule pour la marque de Nintendo, et qui avait été aux États-Unis le premier lieu où les jeunes Nintendo Kids, comme on les appelait à l'époque, ont pu voir les premières images de Super Mario Bros 3. Et la bande-annonce, bien évidemment, jouait énormément là-dessus, et beaucoup de spectateurs se sont rendus en salle, particulièrement pour la séquence finale, où on voit les images de ce nouveau jeu qui allait être commercialisé quelques semaines plus tard sur le territoire américain. Bon, bien évidemment, c'est aussi un lieu de connivence. Ici, Jackie Chan déguisé en Chun-Li dans l'adaptation du manga City Hunter, Nicky Larson. C'est bien évidemment un clin d'œil, une référence générationnelle qui est renvoyée aux gamers. Et puis, je vous parle là très rapidement du réemprunt thématique. Bien évidemment, ces jeux vidéo japonais, européens, américains sont allés puiser ici dans le genre fantastique, par exemple, et dans toutes les figures fantastiques qui ont été créées à Hollywood dans les années 30 sous la houlette de la Universal. Le vampire, le zombie, la momie. Bon, je suis en Suisse, alors je ne peux pas faire l'impasse sur Giger, et bien évidemment, lui aussi inspire largement des jeux vidéo. À droite, vous avez un jeu vidéo allemand, Turrican, en bas un jeu vidéo japonais, qui vont faire référence au style graphique très reconnaissable de Giger, organique, visuel de cette manière, et donc on le retrouve aussi largement employé dans les jeux vidéo, et ce qui est aussi une forme de commentaire et de citation du monde du cinéma. Le jeu vidéo lui-même peut par exemple s'amuser à prendre l'industrie hollywoodienne et en faire un jeu de simulation, où il s'agit de revivre des années 10 jusqu'aux années 2000 l'évolution de l'industrie hollywoodienne. Hollywood, un vivier de stars, bien évidemment, les stars du grand écran ont été employées par les jeux vidéo. Ici, 3 exemples de stars qui travaillent à Hollywood, mais en dehors d'Hollywood aussi. On retrouve ici Jackie Chan, où on retrouve une actrice qui, pour nous, doit être largement inconnue, mais qui est une star dans son pays, Malaika Arora Khan, dans le cinéma indien, puisque les studios indiens développent désormais, depuis quelques années, des jeux vidéo, entre autres inspirés de leurs films de cinéma, pour téléphone portable, mais également pour PC. Les adaptations, bien évidemment, dès 1989 au Japon, dès 1993 en Occident, le jeu vidéo a atteint un certain statut, ce qui fait qu'on peut l'adapter en film, avec des cas comme Tomb Raider. On sait le rôle de Tomb Raider dans la carrière d'Angelina Jolie. Vous regardez la filmographie d'Angelina Jolie, il y a un avant et un après Tomb Raider. Une fois qu'elle a incarné Lara Croft à l'écran, icône s'il en est du jeu vidéo, sa carrière connaît un tournant majeur. Et au Japon, ils sont plus diffusés en Europe depuis maintenant 10 ans, mais chaque été, vous avez un film Pokémon qui continue d'être exploité et qui fait partie des meilleures entrées chaque année dans le box-office japonais. Alors il y aurait d'autres effets à voir. Moi j'aime beaucoup Un jour sans fin d'Harold Ramis, et puis certains passages d'Harold Ramis sur l'effet d'échec-réussite. Vous savez, le fonctionnement échec-réussite qui est propre aux jeux vidéo, entre autres. On connaît beaucoup d'échecs pour connaître une réussite. C'est un petit peu le cas du personnage interprété par Bill Murray et traduit en termes de montage dans le film. Alors bon, je pourrais vous parler de Casino Royale aussi, mais je ne vais pas avoir le temps. Je vais juste vous donner quelques chiffres pour terminer, là plutôt pour les gens qui s'intéressent et qui peut-être ici développent des adaptations de films. Je sais qu'à Lyon, il y a un studio français qui a développé les adaptations pour Nintendo DS du dernier film de Tim Burton. Voilà, moi je me suis amusé dans mes recherches à les dénombrer, ces films adaptés en jeux vidéo. J'en ai recensé 547 qui ont donné lieu à un ou plusieurs jeux vidéo de 1975 à 2010. Alors, ils sont principalement des films produits aux États-Unis par les studios hollywoodiens, ou ce sont des Runaways Productions, c'est-à-dire des films à capitaux américains tournés soit au Canada, soit en Europe de l'Est. On a quelques films européens, des films français, germaniques, italiens, anglais, finlandais, ou produits par le Benelux par exemple. On a peu de films asiatiques et peu de films japonais. Ça c'est assez étonnant, mais le passage salle de cinéma, jeux vidéo, c'est pas la voie la plus usitée au Japon. C'est beaucoup plus manga, jeux vidéo, manga, animé, jeux vidéo, où là il y a pléthore d'objets. Mais vraiment le passage par la salle de cinéma est très peu utilisé. Il y a un ou deux films chinois également. Et en Océanie, il me semble que c'est Babe, un cochon dans la ville. En Amérique latine, c'est un film d'animation mexicain qui a été adapté l'année dernière en jeu vidéo. C'est principalement des films en prise de vue réelle, qui est le mode de production majoritaire, mais vous voyez que l'image de synthèse est très représentée, 63 productions adaptées de films, donc produits en images de synthèse adaptés en jeux vidéo, ce qui montre bien les passerelles aujourd'hui très fortes entre ces deux domaines, et bien évidemment ce qu'on appelle les pipelines logiciels qui permettent de raccourcir les temps de développement des jeux, puisqu'on profite des modèles qui ont été développés pour le grand écran. Nombre de films adaptés simultanément en jeux vidéo, c'est-à-dire avec un écart de maximum 18 mois, qui est un écart qui a tendance à vraiment se réduire à partir de la fin des années 90. Et donc vous voyez que on a dépassé depuis 2002 20 films par an. Il y a au moins chaque année 20 films par an qui sont adaptés simultanément en jeux vidéo, ce qui veut dire que ça fait partie des politiques transmédia aujourd'hui courantes autour des films de cinéma. ça représente 10% des plateformes en général, et sur la Game Boy Color, par exemple, ça représente 32%, parce qu'on a beaucoup d'adaptations de vieux films Disney. Par exemple, Disney a pu réutiliser son catalogue. Blanche-Neige et les 7 nains ou Peter Pan, par exemple, ont été adaptés en jeux vidéo sur Game Boy Color. Bon, il y a un effet big pictures, hein, d'une certaine façon, dans l'ensemble de ces films. C'est ce que nos amis québécois appellent le cinéma de consommation courante, cinéma mainstream en bon français. Les budgets importants de la production cinématographique sont représentés, les succès du box-office, hein, quand on prend les 20 plus grands succès du box-office de tous les temps calculés en dollars constants, on en a 18 hein, qui sont adaptés en jeux vidéo. Des logiques sérielles très fortes. Moi, j'ai recensé plus de 115 séries. L'arme fatale, le flic de Beverly Hills, Shrek, hein, donc des séries, des franchises, on pourrait dire aussi. Voilà, c'est le genre action-aventure qui l'emporte, et bien évidemment, c'est assez représentatif des genres en désuétude à Hollywood. Hein. Il y a peu de westerns produits à Hollywood. Bon, il y a peu de films qui tombent dans la catégorie western. Ici, je me suis référé à la base de données IMDb. Ça veut dire qu'un même film peut avoir différentes étiquettes. Hein. C'est pour ça que si vous additionnez, il y a plus de 547 items, mais c'est qu'un même film peut avoir l'étiquette comédie et l'étiquette thriller, par exemple. Alors les sources, et je vais terminer là-dessus parce qu'il me reste tout juste une minute, c'est principalement des scénarios originaux qui est assez intéressant parce que c'est l'adaptation en général, le mode de fabrication premier des films de cinéma, ce qui veut peut-être dire que ces films sont pensés en amont pour être développés ensuite sur différents supports, et c'est toute la politique qui a été menée à Hollywood dans les années 70. L'adaptation littéraire arrive ensuite, et puis vous avez ensuite toute une série de médias populaires, les comics, le manga, la bande dessinée, la série télévisée ou le dessin animé télévisé, les attractions de parcs d'attractions, hein, Pirates des Caraïbes par exemple, des groupes musicaux, les Spice World ont eu le droit à leur film qui a donné lieu à un jeu, voire, et là le serpent se croque la queue, des adaptations de jeux vidéo. C'est-à-dire un jeu vidéo donne un film qui lui-même va donner un jeu vidéo. Le jeu vidéo Street Fighter The Movie, le jeu Street Fighter The Movie. Voilà, donc pour des star studies, ce sera intéressant. Voilà les stars les plus représentées. Stallone et Schwarzenegger, hein, qui sont les plus présentes dans ces jeux, dans ces films adaptés en jeux vidéo. Beaucoup sont là grâce à des séries de films. Hein. Daniel Radcliffe, par exemple, c'est parce qu'il tourne dans tous les Harry Potter et qu'on en est au 6e épisode et qui sont tous été adaptés en jeux vidéo. La seule femme de mon corpus qui apparaît 4 fois, c'est le maximum, c'est Sigourney Weaver, grâce à Alien. Mais sinon, bien évidemment, il n'y a que des stars masculines. Les réalisateurs, bon là c'est aussi intéressant de voir qu'on a les Hollywood Brats, hein, les réalisateurs à succès de l'Hollywood de la fin des années 70 et des années 80. Bon, bien évidemment la question de l'adaptation pose un petit peu problème pour ces objets-là, puisqu'ils ne sont pas produits après les films, ils sont produits en même temps que les films sont réalisés, donc est-ce que ce sont bien des adaptations? Ce qui est intéressant, c'est que la promesse va de revivre le film dans les années 90, jusqu'à l'arrivée et au développement des moteurs graphiques 3D, où la promesse va devenir explorer l'univers du film. Ce qui fait que je vais très vite. Ce qui fait que moi, je me suis intéressé à ces films qui sont adaptés, et on voit que dans ces films, on a une utilisation généralisée des grands plans d'ensemble ou des plans de demi-ensemble, hein, dans lesquels on voit un personnage, par exemple de dos, devant un paysage. Star Wars épisode 2, par exemple, il y a plus de 80% des séquences qui commencent ou qui terminent par un grand plan d'ensemble, hein, qui présente Coruscant, Tatooine, voilà. Et donc, bien évidemment, l'idée, c'est peut-être que ces films de cinéma veulent aussi être des promesses sur des univers à explorer. Mettre, par exemple, une séquence de course dans un film, ça invite aussi peut-être à le découvrir sous forme de jeu vidéo par la suite. La menace démultipliée, elle est intéressante aussi parce que ces jeux vidéo vont avoir besoin d'une menace, beaucoup de gremlins à affronter ou beaucoup de clones à affronter, et que très souvent dans ces scénarios, on a une menace démultipliée et une capacité de cette menace à être sans cesse réalimentée, renouvelée. Pour des logiques vidéoludiques, c'est très très intéressant. Voilà, donc vous retrouvez beaucoup d'informations dans des pixels à Hollywood, et entre autres les chiffres. Alors là, je vous ai donné les chiffres à jour 2010, mais vous aurez les chiffres à jour 2009 dans le livre. Et puis, vous pouvez aller sur le site de l'Observatoire des mondes numériques en sciences humaines, au collectif auquel je participe, l'équipe Ludiciné à Montréal, qui travaille aussi sur les relations cinéma-jeux vidéo. Et puis, vous me retrouverez moi sur le blog Jeux Vidéal, mon Twitter, mon Facebook, Facebook et n'hésitez pas à me donner vos réactions à la conférence. Merci.
Our project starts with a movie, and it's the idea, a new idea also in Switzerland, created that there will be additional marketing tools that work together with the broadcast of the movie, and that's why we have to start now also with the broadcast tool, also when the film is not already shot. But my name is Samuel Schwarz, and I'm founder of the Kammacher GmbH. That's a small film company in Switzerland, and we started from the theater, and now we start really to adapt our experiences into movie making. And now I wrote for the Südwestfunk in Germany a script. It's called the POLDER. The POLDER is a expression or a terminus out of the fantasy literature. Also the polder is like the Smurfland is a polder, or Hogwarts is a polder, and the Auenland is also a polder. Also magical areas in which you just can go when you have a guide. And they are closed, and you cannot escape when you don't know the way out. And it's a very mysterious name of this film. It's not a very popular topos, but it has a lot to do with the subject. Maybe I have to tell you a little bit about this movie, but I don't want to make it too long, because the essence will be the augmented reality game we want to create out of this movie. But it's necessary to tell you a little bit about this movie, and I hope I will not be too long with that movie pitch. Also, it's the story of it's placed in the future, and it's the story of an innovative computer game of a worldwide working company, and this company is called Nuroo, also Nuroo, as Neoroo. Of course, it reminds to other real existing companies. And this new game creates adventures for the users, so in scanning the neurologic structures. And it's the pitch of them that the border of reality and of game is not clear anymore. And the widow of one of the main creator of this game is the main character. She has nothing to do with computer games, but more and more she has to get in contact with, because she finds out that the company used Chinese test users, and that these Chinese test users died. As it's a story about a bad company. And the game affects a strong addiction. Sometimes you cannot escape out of the game. And when the story goes on, this main character has to find out what really is behind this bad company, and she has to follow, and that's the core of my story in the end. She has to follow audio tracks which were recorded by her husband before he died. And she has to follow these audio tracks, and these audio tracks can't just be solved by her, because there are some elements of the family mythology just she can know, and with this solution she finds out at the end of these riddles, she can enter into this computer of her husband and find out what really was in the beginning of the story. The main story in the end is that Ryoko, also the main character, realizes that she's not a real person, that she's just part of an avatar of this game, and the protection of her own husband, and he's not dead, she's still alive, and she realized that she's not real. And the main philosophical question of the plot is, how do I get real? And of course, it's difficult to tell a story like that in a RG in using modern technology when it's a little bit against techniques. That's a little bit the contradiction of the project. But I think our project we want to do as a special broadcast tool is to work with the desire of the computer user to get real. That means we want to work with the desire to the analog world. The beautiful days when we were not connected to the net all the time. And of course the contradiction is that we use for that to game with that desire, we use modern technologies. And the main concept of this ORG game is to work with GPS tracks that are with audio tracks that starts with the GPS signal. That's the simple core idea. You can, it's a simple example. You can download this application of this game. Then you have it on your smartphone, and then you know. I can go to this. Oh, that's mine. You can go to this special forest or to this special castle, and there suddenly a voice starts to talk with you. And of course, this voice has something to do with this movie. It's an element or a character of this movie, and then you can follow the path and start to go deep into the world of this character. And this immersion effect has a lot to do, of course, with role playing, because you get to an avatar of this character. And our main, how can I say, our experience we made with these audio tracks are that it's everything a question about rhythm. And of course, the new element, of course, audio tracks you could do already 20 years ago with simple analog tapes. But now what's new is that you can have this tree of possibilities. You can go on the right side or you go on the left side, and then other kind of stories will start. You can go deep into the past. For example, in a city you can go to the right, and then suddenly you are in a world 20 years ago. You can go to the left, you can go into the future. And the main idea is that to getting an avatar, it's not necessary to use visual elements, because the visual element we have here is still the best element you have. I think the connection with audio tracks is the most effective way to find out new kinds of storytelling in using smartphone technologies. This sounds everything a little bit abstract now. I would like to give you a small example with an audio track we created 1 year ago in a theater project, and this was like the starting idea for this RG was this theater project we made 1 year ago. It was an adaptation of Claude Chabrol's film La Cérémonie. And the user was guided by a simple audio cassette. We worked also with this analog charm, as it was a simple audio cassette. And there was an audio track started, and you had to follow the voice in your head. And I want to show you that, because after that we can talk a little bit more precise about the possibilities and the chances of this kind of storytelling with audio tracks, especially when they are GPS ausgelöst. What means that, ausgelöst? I don't know the word in English. What? Dissolved. Dissolved by a GPS signal. Yeah. Triggered, yeah. Okay, this it's good when you. It's good to know that you was. Someone gave you this old school Walkman. You had these earphones. Then you were alone, and you walked over an area on this theater spectacle. That was an area in a very romantic area, but you were alone all the time. As you had no company, and you had to follow this voice. And I want to show you now 7 minutes of this audio tracks. Maybe you have to close the eyes and then imagine yourself that you are walking this way. This is not possible now, but you have to imagine that you are making this way. Okay, I start now. shit.
I was one of the curators of a cultural exchange program with the title La Cérémonie. This cultural exchange program was between Switzerland and China, and we celebrated the final ceremony of this project here on the site of the Theaterspektakel in 2010.
One very important information I didn't give, it was these characters are dead, because when you know Chabrol's film, this is this bourgeois, high bourgeois family who gets killed from Isabelle Huppert and Sandrine Bonnaire, and the audience knew that these characters and these voices are ghosts, and they talk about something which happened in the past.
I would like to take you to some of the places that I went to on that evening. Please orientate yourself to begin with. In front of you is the street. Slightly to the left, the BP petrol station. Behind you is a flight of stairs. Walk up these stairs. To your right, you can see that you can step down onto the pebbles. Be careful and step down.
Can you make it a little bit louder?
And then there's a scaffolding. Pass the scaffolding to your left. And walk towards the water. At one point the pebbles stop, and there are some stone slabs on the ground. And then there's a flight of stairs down to the water. I was also here that evening. Walk down. One of the steps is broader, longer. Stop there. I was here that evening to be alone. Turn to your left. There's a place where boats can land. And on that evening there was a boat shuttle service leaving from that point, taking people to the stage on a small island in the lake where we had our final ceremony. The shuttle service going back and forth. Look on the ground. There's a coin. Pick it up and put it in your pocket. Keep it. Let's go back. I don't know what to say. Well, anyway. It wasn't so easy, the whole thing. Let's go on. Step through these bamboo plants. You'll come onto a wooden path, a white tent right in front of you. Go right and follow the wooden path. It turns left around the white tent, and then to your left the kitchen area will open up, and to your right there's another square, an open space with pebbles on the ground and a wooden table with benches. Sit down there for a moment. Sit down at this table for a moment, facing the open space. The evening of our final ceremony, I sat here. And I thought about my child, this pregnancy, and I really thought that maybe I should have an abortion. Golan didn't even know I was pregnant, and I didn't know whether I should tell him, and if so, how to tell him. And it's not that I didn't like him. I really, really liked him a lot, but I just didn't know how to do all this and how things should work between us. And I thought about what kind of education or profession I'd want for this child. And I wasn't sure. I didn't know. But I was so shocked that John said that I should have an abortion, but I really did consider it, but now it doesn't matter anymore. Because the child wasn't meant to live anyway. And continue on your path close to the...
Here now is coming a special moment when the user or the viewer was absolutely alone in this park. There was no one else there. And then he went through a small alley, and when he came around the corner, there was suddenly a person standing there with blood on the face. As it was a shocking moment. As this first 5 minutes was just to hypnotize the viewer and to feel him comfortable and to listen to this character. And more, this path gets more and more creepy. Now comes this moment when you hear this uncomfortable noise. Then you can imagine that there was suddenly standing a creature in your way.
And continue on your path close to the wall. That evening I was running my fingers along the wall. In front of you are toilets. Walk around the corner. Follow the wooden path to your left. Walk down the stairs onto the pebbles. I want to ask you something. Do you like following me? Because I have this theory that people like to follow instructions. It gives us a sense of security. It's easy. Freedom is not easy. But it's so boring. It's so boring to just keep following set paths. To your right is the Theater Süd, the green building we passed to begin with. Süd is written on its front and side. Walk towards this building. To my left.
The idea was to hypnotize the viewer for this long path and to get him sensibilized for a story. We had also other kind of path. We had 6 paths to choose. The one was a horror path. It was with a lot of moments of loneliness and creeping ghost effects. And now, of course, we have to put into this additional idea of GPS techniques. What we want to do now is to make this first founding for this project, to create a specific application which can be used for this kind of immersion or convergence projects. That means we want to develop an application that where it's possible to record as a user special lines at a special place that other viewers can hear later. Then more and more you will have like something like an audio bubble at special places, and of course in mix of the lines and the storytelling which was created by the system crew and the user crew, you will have something like an audio world of memory. This application you can also use for other kind of things. You can also use this application for grief places, maybe when people at a special place, someone died or something else. You can you can create like an audio cloud for people who are going to somewhere else. Also that means our project, which is connected to our film, we want to create an application that can be used also for other kind of application. And this kind of memory space was not possible 5 years ago. It's just possible till now. And the idea is to make it's a very complex founding we have in our mind. We want to make this additional broadcast tool for this film, but we also want to start with a research project at the University of Zurich, as at the Hochschule der Künste, because in Switzerland since 2 years we have the National Foundation spends money in 2 special departments of research, and we have a research department in storytelling at the Hochschule der Künste, and we want to integrate this department to create this application, and of course to find out with empirics experiments what how this kind of storytelling could be in future. We have specific questions we want to find out. How many people do you need to start a project like this? Is it necessary to have 50 people, or do you need 80 people to have this kind of snowball effect? We can find out also which kind of user wants to play that, and how much digital action he needs to get into physical action. That's something, a line I learned from Asta Velius. She gave me already some consultants about this. Also we are also in search of empiric specific questions we can find out in this lab, and in the end we will have this very practical tool of our RG, but the idea is also to win the department, these research departments from the Hochschule der Künste, because there are a lot of interests in that kind of storytelling, because it's a actual question. And I think in this audio idea is a lot of potential, because like I already said before, the cameras we already have in our heads, and so I think it needs 10 or 20 years more to create really innovative and usable tools for eyeglasses or something else. And I think we could do a lot of progresses in researching this kind of storytelling with audio tracks. I think this is the core idea of our project, this audio track using.
I come from a background actually of university. I studied rhetorics, about talking and writing, and sociology, and I was a huge nerd. And I also read as much as mythology as I could get my hands on, because I saw a shared path about how we tell stories, how we learn, and how we live every day. So for me, every type of storytelling is communication. It's you and me sharing experiences, and I just think it's more fun playing WoW than it is playing a really boring learning game. And I produced learning games for 10 years, and I really made someone that stunk. But that was back actually in Centropa Interaction. I'm at university, I'm happy, I'm doing some role playing, I'm start writing a little bit of a thesis that are about how storytelling works, thinking about doing mobile games, and then comes along a Danish director called Lars von Trier and says, hey, can't you develop something for me? I need to combine theater, role play, games and films. And I kind of go, I don't know. But we spent 3 years. Tivoli, the huge attraction house, which you might know, kind of like a huge attraction park, very old, gave us 30 million Danish kroner, which is, I think, 4 million euros, or something like that, to come up with something new. Unfortunately, they went broke when we had a concept. And also, they chose Lars von Trier, but we came up with a really dystopian concept, which was really interesting, but maybe not Tivoli. But what happened was that after been working with Lars von Trier for 2 years, we made a company together. So these 2 men brought me up. And then Lars von Trier's former producer, Vibeke Windeløv. So I'm a university nerd that came into the film world. I do scripts for fun. I do a little bit of film development, but mostly I just want to tell new types of stories. In the 10 years I had my 2 Centropa companies, I produced anything weird because nobody did mobile games, nobody did kind of huge role-playing simulations. So they came to me and say, hey, we have an art museum, we want to do something new with the way we kind of show art. Can you do a game-like thing? We can try. And then we always did it together, saying, you have the content, you know about your theme, we develop together. So I've been working with anything from special effects people to especially universities actually also. I kind of put together teams. So you have teams from all areas depending on the project. So I produced nearly anything. I think the weirdest was a huge event at a very big musical festival in Denmark called Roskilde Festival, where there's 60,000 people. They were opening a whole new area and they wanted to discuss technology as a paradigm. What is technology? Does it make us more controlled with cameras everywhere, where a liter of milk is always a liter of milk, everything is uniformed? Or is it anarchy and freedom for all? And does it mean that Max was right, that people own the production methods? Which 2 stories are true? So we set up a huge live role-playing event to do that with a fictional TV channel, fictional newspaper in the middle of Roskilde, among people who were on drugs and really drunk, and we started discussing how we use technology. And we actually got a lot of people who participated, so it was really beautiful. But we also landed a UFO in the middle of it. During the night, it came in on huge wagons, 8 meters in diameters, and then with smoke out everywhere and an alien coming out. And so we did a lot of entertaining things to get people to discuss something very serious. And that's what I like to do. I like to use the power of storytelling and engagement to actually work with things that matters. I never do anything that's just entertainment. Life's too short. So that's me. We call it new media. Today, when I start working, we call it hybrids, because we didn't know what it was. Now I call it participatory story formats. Anything where I, as a creator, dare open the story and let you in to be part of the story. And that's our problems as creatives. We don't want to do that. We want to tell you a story, eat it, like it or not, admire me as a storyteller, but I want you to be part of the story. So that's what I find really, really... I'm just going to show you 2 crazy projects I did recently, because a lot of people call me up with really weird projects. If I'm not good at them, I give them to someone else. I say, it's not me, but talk with these guys. But this one I actually like. Do you remember the COP15 meeting in Copenhagen, where they're supposed to actually sign the CO2 papers? They didn't. I think even Obama came, but didn't sign either. Well, there was a lot of politicians, there was a lot of journalists, but the people was about, the world's populations, they weren't there. So we made the world's first virtual demonstration. So this globe is a satellite photo. It rotates, which makes it really, really expensive and difficult. And whenever somebody checks in, either on a mobile phone, on the installation in Copenhagen, or on the web, anywhere in the world, a small pin, and that's the only kind of, a pin you put on a, when you attach a piece of paper to the wall on a wooden frame, what's that called? Yeah, it's a pin, a tag, thank you. The tag was the only form that every culture recognized. And since we also needed people in China to understand what we were doing, we used the tag. So whenever someone checked in on the website, mobile, or on the physical space in Copenhagen, a pin came from the country they were from, went the way their server went, and went to Copenhagen. So that's what is happening. You can't see in this picture, but in real time, whenever people sign on, you could see pins. Then it was also quizzes, it was NGO content. What is this? It's not mine. Samuel, maybe it's yours? It was an art intervention. So this project's really interesting. Our only problem was that when we reached 7.5 million hits, our servers died, because we thought we would get 500,000. We thought nobody would care. And the only thing we had was installation, a web application, and a mobile application. But what we did have was a lot of campaigns. So a lot of campaigns who worked for the Better of the World or worked for animal care pushed our applications out to their thousands of users. So it was a very interesting project to do. We did it together with actually the foreign ministry and with a big cultural organization. The only problem was in the middle, Google came and wanted to take it over because they were doing a beta thing of Google Earth, but it couldn't do any quizzes, it couldn't do any pins, it could just rotate. So we had a long political struggle suddenly in the middle of the project. This was a very cheap project and done in 4 months, because that's when the idea came. And I did it with a small gaming company, one of their subcontractors, and Danish Broadcast. And Danish Broadcast just kind of lent us some programmers. So 17 million hits and a huge installation is very possible. Of course, you need the cameras and the projectors, and you need the screen. It's the screen up there. But it's actually possible to do something very big with very little. And I admire the small solution that are well thought out and not necessarily extremely expensive, because you can't be sure they work. Another really crazy project, now we're in the more expensive side, is a big aquarium that came and said, can't you do kind of a gaming role-playing experience out of museum? So we had to change the whole museum's experience from a passive one to an interactive one. Because, I mean, when we go to museums and aquariums, we're not allowed to touch and see and feel. We're like, standing like this. And I mean, it's our cultural money who pays for it, but we just kind of, we mustn't touch the art. So we thought about, okay, we're just going to change it. I was very lucky. I was working with a very good architect. This is kind of the overview of the room. You see, this is not like a museum normally is. It's more like an amusement park. And this is actually a ship that's kind of crashed into the wall and comes out. And he said, I built you an ugly building, but it's very good for experiences. So what we ended up doing was actually thinking the user, the participant, is the main character, not the people who has the museum, not the fish in the tanks. So we ended up, and I just have to say, there were 3,000 people passing per day. So you can't do a little cute interactive thing that takes 10 minutes and one person can use. You really have to think about 3,000 people in a flow. So we kind of created a whole narrative system. It was one huge organic structure, but where the user could choose where there's a queue, where there's not, and move through. So just imagine like you have a room with a lot of content, and then people kind of got attracted to what can I see, what can I hear. And we made the whole as a total scenography, so a black box, and then with light and with sound, and some places also with a bit of smell. But smell is really difficult because some people are allergic, so I would say stay away from that. I never do it again anyway. It was really expensive to get in, so we also needed to make sure that people felt well. And it was a social experience. People come as families or friends, so anything interactive we did needed to be able to accommodate at least 3 or 4 people. Possible to do with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there was a lot of kind of very difficult things to solve. But we thought of it as a huge theater stage, you could say, a room, and then we just needed to fill that with experiences. We ended up actually with doing a huge narrative concept saying, what is the story for the user? Why do they go in here? Star Wars, the story is good and bad against each other. This is very typical. Most stories is about survival, but here we came up with a reason for people to go there, why they should explore. And then we actually ended up with 27 different types of productions. So what I did was to make the story architecture kind of come up with, we have this content, we have this target group, how do we transform that into engaging social experiences that are interactive? And then I hired game companies, filmmakers, and so and so. So we're actually doing 27 productions in one big place. Yes, you're tired, so I'm not gonna keep going on this one, but this is also kind of things I get asked to do sometimes, which also means that I mostly work in networks, because I don't want to have a company who does all that, because my animator will never be good enough if they both do a globe and do this. So I only work with either huge organization, universities, or freelance or small companies. That's the only way of getting money or getting the money really well used in interactive productions. So our network, all kind of companies. We don't have so many contacts in Korea and China. I've been there, but the cultural differences are so big, so when we develop, we have problems. But else we have contacts in most of Europe and Canada and United States that we work with. And if any of you think what we do is fun, after I'm finished, please come and say hello. Because we're always looking for new work partners. The way we get money is either we get commission, so someone give me a bag of money and say do this, and I collect a team. Or I co-produce with someone who has a really good idea, or I have a good idea and think it'd be great to do together. Me and Samuel are going to work together and have some projects we're going to do together because it's very fun. I also sometimes a mentor. I was sent to Canada with 20 interactive projects, 10 from Europe and 10 from North America, to help develop them. And sometimes I'm a hired gun if it's a really, really difficult project. If something that's never been done before, where I'm thinking, oh God, how are we going to solve this? Then I can be hired. And again, what I do is a story architecture. So I kind of help come up with what is the basic idea, what is the user experience, how do we spread that on which platforms? Because not every film needs a game. Some films really do, but other films don't make a game. You're gonna die. The theme, the content's not gonna work, and it's gonna be a horrible game. So really about what works on which platforms. This is a picture of my first alternate reality game. This is back in 2004. It was on a film of Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg, who made Festen, a Dogma movie you might know. And it was really a bad ARG. The Danish Film Institute have never heard about ARGs. We've been working with some American who've done some. But the UK, the distributors in UK thought it was a great idea. So we made an ARG for the UK launch, but actually had websites from all over the world. And it was this kind of, it was this elite group that nobody know of, that of course was a bit evil, the same old story. But it was really funny because we actually got a lot of users. Our problem was the target audience for the film was not on the web. So what we did get was a lot of very young people who loved Lars von Trier and also loved Thomas Vinterberg and who loved playing with the web. But they didn't like the film. So we had a very interesting problem that we actually reached a lot of people with the ARG, but we couldn't use them for anything, or the film couldn't use them. But they had a lot of fun, especially in Spain, where it wasn't, it wasn't where we were meant to. And now we've said ARG so many times. I know there's some of the audience who know what it is, but just to ask, what is an ARG? You know.
If you try to explain, people think about drugs.
Exactly. It's called an alternate reality game. Is there anyone who's fresh? I can do it, but
It's runs on the digital storytelling. It runs on multiple platforms, online and in the physical world. It has stories. It has kind of a treasure hunt structure. It can last 5 minutes or a whole year. It can have 2 people or even 1 person or a million of participants.
yeah, I think you're doing great. It's called alternate reality games. It means we're playing between reality and fiction. I have a way of describing where I say normally when you play a game, it's like Alice in Wonderland. You go into the rabbit hole, you play a game, you go out of the rabbit hole into the real world again. You can also say if it is an online game or no more person on it, you go into the rabbit hole, play with your friends, then you go out again in the real world. What we do here with an ARG is we take some dynamite, put it into the rabbit hole, and blow the game all over reality. So anything you see in this room could be part of an ARG. Let's, for example, say this bottle of water is probably sold over most of Switzerland. So if I did an ARG in Switzerland, one of the small riddles I would do was to make an anagram of something riddled on this bottle. Because you're pretty sure that anyone in Switzerland, people can get this one. So we can implement things from the game. If you're working with an international one, you take a Coca-Cola bottle. Because they have some of the same text everywhere in the world. So we can actually place things from the game anywhere. It can be something that's in the radio. If you buy a commercial, for example, it can be an announcement in the newspaper that's not real. So that's basically an ARG. ARG is an exploratory form. It's like playing detective, but you don't know what's part of the game. And the first there ever was The Beast. It didn't even have a name. The people who made it didn't name it, but the users did. And what they did was have 30 websites, 3 answering machines, so when you called up a phone number there was an answer, SMSs and automatic emails. I'm not going to go into the Beast as a field case, but if any of you are interested, you can come and I can kind of tell you how does the storyline go. It's really, really simple. The Beast was so effective that the users started their own community, not the game creators. And it was 3 people in a cellar at Microsoft who got on leave to do something with Spielberg. And they actually ran out of content because people got so mad about it that they spent so much time. So this is basically an AIG. This one was used as a launch tool to launch the film AI. This is how a structure could look, the narrative structure in AIG. I borrowed this one from Steve Peters, who did The Beast, but also did Batman. And Steve and me look at the structure and say, okay, let's say we have a fake newspaper somewhere. Up there, there's a phone message. And then you have some websites. So you can see this can all be part of the story. And this could be, when you look at a narrative structure of an AIG, with what we call entrance to the rabbit holes, or the narrative hooks. Where do we get people into the story? Where do you start the story? And then a spread of different paths you can take through content. What's really interesting here is the narrative doesn't exist unless you experience it. So you make your own connection in between the pieces. Of course there are storylines, but you make the connections between them. And that's the only narrative I've seen where it doesn't exist until the user explores it. So this is basically an AIG structure. Another AIG were done, do you know the band 9 Inch Nails? Yeah, they did a very great AIG. 9 Inch Nails made a record which was about American culture that's going towards very armed and very religious. So they made a record about a religious dystopia. And then they made a huge AIG around it. And they even had, if you have the CD with the music, you put it into your computer. When you took it out, you know, it's get heated up. Suddenly, there was a code on it that color-coded it. And, you know, people might not notice, but what happened in an hour after the CD was out on the street was that someone uploaded films on YouTube. Hey, look at the new CD on 9 Inch Nails. So if you give the users the tools, and YouTube is a brilliant tool, they will spread the news to the others. This is a t-shirt, a touring t-shirt for 9 Inch Nails. You can't see it at this one, but is there anyone who can spot something that looks a bit odd, a bit weird? I know it's really bad on this photo. It's a very used tour t-shirts we could get. The letters? Which letter? Is there anything? Yes, that's a code. You put that in, it's a website. What they also did when they were playing places, they left USB sticks with extra music and extra hint. This was a very inexpensive AIG. I think it was about 40 websites, which were not very advanced. About 1,000 USB sticks, a little bit of footage, and t-shirts. And then actually the users did the rest. And the users also started a community called Art Rebels and Cultural Rebels, and start, you know, making prints and doing their own t-shirts and got really engaged. But we got 10 minutes left. I'm going to tell you about our newest project. And I have to say, we just got financing from the Danish Film Institute last Friday. Arte is looking at it. I have some private investors who want to invest to see what happens with the project, and a university also giving us money. This is the first time anyone sees it. And we just put this together for the Danish Film Institute. So be really gentle with us, because it's the first time we show it to anybody else than the team. We call it internally the Courage Generator, because what we want to do is build a machine that makes people talk about bravery and social responsibility. And it's actually 2 creative products. It's a Danish film based on an authentic story coming out next year that has an international launch plan. Disney wants to distribute, a lot of other wants to distribute. So we know it's going to be distributed in Europe. The story is a war story without any explosions. It's about people who choose to be freedom fighters, not because they don't like the Germans, but because they think everybody should stand up. So every connection between the resistant group and the German army is very soft scenes, because, I mean, a German soldier is not responsible for what is happening. And we have a whole family who end up actually being executed. They're 12, and 2 of them survive, young women. The rest are killed. And they're normal people. They're not trained in anything. They're not spies. So they're everyday people that chose to do something out of courage. We use that as a vehicle to talk about courage, not in the Second World War, but today. So the film is based on the authentic story, but filled with clips from demonstration in China, in America, Afghanistan. And we're using the game as a vehicle to talk about courage. So you can say the film and the AAG shares the same basic story, but what Second World War also gives us is a huge amount of very beautiful archive material. And so far, everybody wants to just give the material so we can use it for free, because when you do content for the web, it's really, really expensive, especially film, and we want to have a lot of content. So why are we making an AAGs? We want to open the story and make it participatory. We want people to explore it, get it under their skin, because else we don't think they're going to change the world. We also want to get teenagers to talk with their grandparents. We know that they SMS a lot. It's actually more than with their parents. Grandparents buy mobile phones to SMS with their grandchildren. So we know they have already kind of the social behavior of doing it. Now we want to create dialogue. And then we also know the film has a huge marketing budget, that if we have a print or if we have a TV commercial, we can make people into interactive users. Any of you can make the most beautiful interactive project, but if you don't get people to use it, it's a failure. But we know when we have the huge marketing, we normally convert from 5 to 50% of the people who see a TV spot. And a TV spot they see in 30 seconds. That's very heavy attention, but very short. When we get them, we can normally make them do from 30 minutes to 130 minutes of interactive use. And of course, we want to change the world, or just help to make it a little bit better. We think it's really important that we talk about courage and social responsibility today, but do it in a different way. Just to give you sort of the target groups, our main target group is tweeners and teenagers from 11 to 20. For them, the online universe is about play. It's a game where you test your courage, you get in dangerous situation, you get ethical choices. Our secondary group is the grandparents. For them, it's an interactive archive, and it's most about exploring courage. This is not a Danish project. The project travels where the film is launched, but already when we start, we're going to have content also from other parts of Europe. And then, of course, there's also a debate forum. It's not what us game designers really burn for, but we think it's really important to have, also because there's a synergy between the 3 types of experiences. But you could say that we actually have 3 target groups, and normally everybody will say to you in interactive, choose 1 target group, make it very specific, make sure you know your users. Oh, sorry. And I don't even brought my backup disk. Here we actually take the same content, but use it differently to accommodate more users. Just to give you a short example, I'm going to let you meet Christina. This is Christina. She's 14 years old. She gets an invitation on Facebook, and she gets asked, "Are you brave? Do you have courage?" And everybody, she's like, I think I'm semi-brave. She takes the test. What she finds out is what type of freedom fighter she is. Well, her result is that she's very organized and intelligent and good at planning. So she resembles Marius, who's one of the main characters in the film. After she's taken the test, she gets on Facebook a small film where he asks her, "Would you like to help us? Would you like to help? Would you like to be a freedom fighter?" And you were nodding, so I guess she accepts. On her mobile phone, she received a coded message. The first step is very easy. That's something we learned from Liga when they work with the interactive thing. You talk about it has to be really, really simple, the first 10 clicks you make people do. She decodes the message. When she decodes the message as a present, she gets a short archive clip explaining her mission. The mission is helping to get fuel. We're in the Second World War with this part of the story. There's no fuel. So Christina is asked to go get some fuel or find out where it is. Now, what actually happens underneath is that we have very often to introduce a mission, a movie file. Then we have 3 to 4 different choices. Then either movie, audio, article, something for the interactive archive, something you find on the net, more choices, and then a debriefing from the main character who gave you the mission, and a change to your profile. So you have a profile that changes all the while when you do things. So that is kind of the basic narrative structure underneath. Now, Christina has been playing for a while, and she gets things that she either thinks a bit difficult, or she thinks this interactive archive she has to go into sounds a bit boring. So she get Olaf, her grandparent, to go into that archive. He finds it for her. She continues the mission, finish it, and then suddenly, this is a world map of courage. This just shows Denmark as a part because it's a Danish user case. We have suddenly a resistance cell that pops up. So now Christina can see where she lives. There is a dot. The more activity she does, the bigger that dot will be. Christina also has a cousin who lives in Germany and studies political science. And he's not really interested in gaming, but Christina is a little bit in love with him. So she asked him to help. And he actually ends up doing a debate on the debate side, just to show you how could different types of experience be for users. Christina's grandparent actually gets quite interested. This is the virtual memorial grove, where anybody can upload people they think did something courageous. It can be a freedom fighter from Chile, but it can also be your grandmother that did this and that. And also again, Olaf can actually spend a lot of time on the interactive archive, where we have a lot of material already secured. Well, basically, we just use very simple things that people already have. We use Facebook, Foursquare, a website. We use your phones, and we're very used to doing daily puzzles, minigame, location-based missions. The only big thing we do is actually to make a database that tracks your profile and gives you feedback. So you can say we do a violation, or we infect the other platforms and just have our story content on them, and then we have somewhere we collect the activity they do and give them feedback. There's synergy between the 3 main experiences. When a user uploads something, that name gets in the next mission. So if you upload your grandparent did something, he can give people a mission in that area. It's a basic game structure where you get a conflict, a choice, and a consequence. The more you get people involved, the bigger your resistance cell gets, the better you can play. So it's also these very simple things of why do I need to invite friends into it. What we want to do is to use the game and the quizzes to get people to talk about ethical things or take choices in their daily life. But I think I said that already, and we are getting close to that. We have to stop. So just want to say, we actually don't know what this is. We don't know if this is a lot of mini games in one structure. Is it an AIG that has an interactive hyperstructure documentary form? We don't know. What we do know is that we based it all on user experience design. We talk so much about new formats these days, and we talk about, should it be an AIG, should it be a mobile game? Where are your users? What do they like to do? They want your content, they want your story, but there's no reason for you to construct a huge gaming system. I know a Swedish company who spent so much money on doing a very beautiful structure 2 years ago. Now it's all open source. So rather take things that already works, connect it, and put your content there. Don't try to do something where you have to drag the users. I really think about the user's experience. What we also want to do here is actually come up with something that people can copy. If we're successful, we hope everybody will copy it. Because all of us in every country in Europe and in Canada, we're spending so much money designing technical platforms that then works for one project. So we really hope everybody will copy us. To make sure we don't waste too many money, we put on an international team. So everybody, more or less, who's been working with interactive narratives on a high level. Matt Costello from the United States, who did the King Kong game. Nuno Bernardo, who made Sophia's Diary, the first interactive TV series. Danish broadcast, the Danish film school, Sean Coleman, who used to do it for Endemol. In Sweden, we have some very experienced people about integration to Facebook. We are working also with the Samuel here in Switzerland. And then we have a lot of mentors. And then we have a university documenting a process. So the documentary pay that we fly in all the experts, do the creative developing together, write down what do we do, what kind of choices do we take, so we also can give people that afterwards, so they can learn and don't do the same mistakes we did. The idea is that for each territory the film launches in, we seek local partners, more funding, and we look at how people use technology, because the way they do it in Scandinavia, it's not necessarily the same time of day they do it in Spain. So all the time looking at demographics, looking at metrics, data mine, we call it in Denmark, and then put more content in. So when you work with a new region, you need new missions and you need new archive material. I think we have to go quick now. How much time do we have left? 3 minutes or so? 2? So I actually wanted to ask you, but you're also very tired. It's been a long day. But I think the reason that ARGs is a new format is interesting is a little bit about what we talked about in the start. I wouldn't call it games or films, or I would call it cultural stimuli. It used to be that someone created the cultural stimuli and someone else just consumed it passively. The ARG does give us a new way of doing things. It can be done on a very small scale, very cheap, can be done very big. It can be done on any medium. It can be done with using actors, without, with mobile phones, without. So we actually have a new format that can help us find out what we really like about storytelling. I think that the old way of telling stories, where we told them together, is returning. And I think ARGs is just one of the signs, and maybe a medium we can play with together to find whole new ways. The future of ARGs, I see 4 roads. One, as a marketing tool. It's been very effectively. I've actually seen companies who don't produce films use it. Axe, who make deodorants, have made an ARG. Audi has does it. The Olympic Games made a very beautiful one. Look it up if you're interested in it. It's called The Lost Ring. It was used to get youth to get interested in sport. Ran in 7 countries. It was amazing. That was McDonald's that sponsored that one. All the analyzers right now, there's a company in New York called Red. In 2007, we looked together at analyzers and said in 2017, the biggest marketing budgets will be in brands using them on games. And it looks like ARGs right now are the brand's favorite place. So if you want to get really good at making ARGs, there's a lot of brands that can pay you money to get good at it. Then that's option number 1, that ARGs turns into marketing tools for film, for brands. The second is that we can actually expand the narrative. Because films are very good at one thing. What can filmmakers do? What happens with film? Yeah, I ask you, you're in the front, yeah. What does film do for you? Yeah? They make you dream. That's all emotional notes, we call it. Film play on emotion, identification. We call it structuring in time, or Tchaikovsky did. But we also have people locked in a seat where they have to see our structure of time. We can't do that today. And we can't do it on so many screens. So we have to find another way. The interesting thing is that in games and ARGs, we have other ways of working than emotional. We have the interactive. I can see that I really have to stop now. So just will say that for me to see, I actually think what's happening in Canada now, I'm working with BBC on a couple of projects, what's happening in Europe, I think the next driver for ARGs will be documentaries. Because documentaries have authentic material. They already have this kind of investigative themes in them. So I actually think ARGs on documentaries, that's going to be the next big area. Learning games for very complex material. I think I've done 3 ARGs for learning games, and I've just been asked by a scientist to make an ARG that explains his new theory. I think that was really inventive. I never saw that one coming. But for really complex things that people need to learn. I know there's a medical company who gives them to their staff because they handle some pretty toxic things. So they made an AIG for training their staff. That's also quite genius, but I think that's also a way. And then I think AIGs will be an art form in itself. And that's of course the one that interests me. I think this is a storytelling format from now on, but we just don't know anything about it. We have so little cases. So I really suggest that the people who like to look into this start working together. Because the emotional feedback you get from the users, the stories you can do are amazing. But this is so unexplored land. I don't know what we are, Christopher Columbus, finding a new continent, or is this a travel into space? I don't know. But in storytelling, nothing as new has happened in 100 years, 150 maybe. Yeah. So I think I have to stop now. Alexis is looking really worried. So thank you for your attention. I know it was late and I talk a lot, but I hope you got something out of it.